Look at this brainwave graph on my screen. This isn't a seismograph of an earthquake or a stock market crash. It's my actual neurological activity from 3 weeks ago. Notice those jagged, aggressive red spikes? That is the signature of high beta waves, a state of permanent crisis, the sound of a brain vibrating with the stress of 1,000 digital micro decisions. Now, look at the second graph from this morning. It's smooth, rhythmic, and pulsing in the alpha-theta range. My screen time has plummeted by 70%, but my income and creative output have tripled. I've tried every productivity hack in the book, the cold plunges that just left me shivering and the Pomodoro timers that felt like prison sirens. But this is the only protocol that actually reached into the hardware and cleared the empty feeling that has been haunting us all lately. If you are sitting there right now with 10 brilliant business ideas in your Notes app, but you haven't finished a single one, if you feel like a scanner brain trapped in a world that demands you be a cog, or if you simply feel a profound sense of numbness and apathy, even when you aren't working, I need you to listen very carefully. Your brain isn't broken, you aren't becoming depressed, and you certainly aren't lazy. You're simply being forced to run the wrong operating system for the year 2026. In the next few minutes, I'm going to guide you through the Cognitive Sovereignty Protocol, a 7-day system to reclaim your mind from the most predatory force in human history. But first, you have to understand why the old-fashioned dopamine detox is a scientific relic that is actually making you even more fickle and exhausted. We have arrived at a terrifying milestone in 2026. The algorithms have become too perfect. They no longer just suggest what you might like, they predict your biological vulnerabilities before you even feel them. This has created a new pathology I call algorithmic burnout. It's not the exhaustion of doing too much, it's the emptiness of having everything done for you. To understand why you feel so hollow, we have to look at the difference between organic novelty and what I call synthetic dopamine. In the ancestral world, dopamine was the reward for the hunt. You had to expend effort, navigate uncertainty, and engage your brain to find a reward. That effort-to-reward ratio kept your dopamine receptors healthy. But today, AI-driven algorithms feed you perfect content with zero effort required from you. This is synthetic dopamine. It's a chemical fire hose that leads to a process called downregulation. Your brain, in an attempt to protect itself from this artificial tidal wave, physically prunes its own dopamine receptors. You literally lose the antennae required to feel joy in real life. The result is anhedonia, a graying of the world where even your biggest passions feel like a chore. The villain of this story isn't just the like button, it's the suppression of your default mode network, or the DMN. The DMN is that beautiful, quiet region of the brain that lights up when you're daydreaming in the shower, staring out a window, or taking a walk without a podcast. For a polymath or a scanner brain, the DMN is your powerhouse. It's where your far transfer happens, connecting your interest in 18th century philosophy to your modern marketing strategy. But in 2026, the algorithm has eliminated the gap. Every second of boredom is now filled with a synthetic stimulus. When you kill the DMN, you kill your sense of self. You feel empty because there is no longer an internal monologue, only a reflection of the feed. You're suffering from ego depletion caused by choice overload. Your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, is being forced to process thousands of micro-decisions every hour you spend scrolling, leaving it completely bankrupt when it's time to make a decision that actually matters for your life. You've been blaming your willpower, but you can't willpower your way out of a biological strike. Your CEO has left the building because the office is on fire. So how do we fix this? We aren't going to try harder. We are going to start right away with step 1 of the protocol, which bypasses your willpower entirely and starts the neurological cooling process. The first move in reclaiming your cognitive sovereignty begins the literal second your eyes open, and it has nothing to do with hustle. We need to perform a neural buffer reset. During my tracking experiment, I found that the context switching penalty, the 23 minutes it takes your brain to regain focus after a single distraction, is actually amplified by how you start your morning. If you check your phone in bed, you're flooding your buffer with synthetic dopamine before your system has even booted up. Instead, step 1 requires a micro action, the sunlight revision. You need 5 minutes of natural photons in your eyes while performing a mental RAM dump. You aren't planning your day, you're simply observing your thoughts without an external input. This resets your cortisol awakening response and moves your brain from the groggy delta state of sleep into alpha waves, that sweet spot of relaxed high-level concentration. I follow this with a 5-minute NSDR, or non-sleep deep rest. It's a physiological cheat code that tells your nervous system that the predatory digital world is gone and the perimeter is secure. This resets your dopamine baseline and stops the high beta spikes before they start. Step 1 helps you regain your focus, but if you're a multi-passionate multitasker, that focus will quickly turn into fickleness the moment a new shiny idea pops up at your desk. This is where most people fail, and it's exactly what step 2 of the protocol solves by turning your perceived distraction into your greatest competitive advantage. Now, let's lean in a bit closer, because this next part is where the trendy hustle porn gurus usually get it wrong. They'll tell you to just pick one thing and stick to it, which for a multi-potentialite brain is the neurological equivalent of telling a hummingbird to stop flapping its wings and act more like a rock. For a brain wired for range, forcing yourself into a single, narrow specialist lane doesn't lead to mastery. It leads to a total system shutdown. During my tracking experiment, my data showed that when I tried to force monogamy with a single project, my executive control network, or ECN, didn't become more efficient. It became a protest zone of high beta waves. My brain was essentially screaming with the stress of boredom. To fix this, we move into step 2 of the protocol, the cross-pollination silo. You see, the genius of the scanner brain lies in its ability to perform what we call far transfer, the skill of taking a concept from music theory and using it to solve a complex coding problem or a marketing bottleneck. But you can only do this if you stop treating your workday like a 1950s assembly line. Instead of fighting your nature, you are going to structure your time to feed 2 distinct legs of mastery every day. No more, no less. You give yourself a 90-minute silo for your primary pillar, and then, this is the crucial part, instead of taking a break by scrolling on your phone, which just floods your RAM with more algorithmic exhaust and synthetic dopamine, you perform an intentional switching ritual. You go for a 10-minute walk, stare at a tree, or do the dishes, activities that keep the ECN quiet but allow the default mode network to go into overdrive. This is the moment where my brain waves would dip into that beautiful rhythmic theta frequency. Because I wasn't paying the context-switching penalty by jumping to a screen, the attention residue cleared in minutes. My subconscious was finally free to do its real work, connecting the dots. This is how Leonardo da Vinci lived, jumping from anatomy to engineering to painting, not because he was unfocused, but because he knew that each world provided the metaphors to solve the problems of the next. You aren't dabbling, you are performing a neuro-architectural synthesis that makes you a specialist's worst nightmare. But I have to warn you about the biological friction point. Around the 4th day of applying this system, your brain is going to stage a full-scale coup. This is the Anhedonia wall, the moment where your amygdala, the brain's ancient, grumpy smoke detector, starts screaming that you are in danger because you haven't given it its usual dose of high-fructose algorithmic junk food. My data showed a massive spike in high beta waves during this phase. It felt like a physical itch in the center of my skull. Most people interpret this restlessness as a sign that the protocol isn't working or that they are burning out. In reality, it's the exact opposite. It is the sign that your dopamine receptors are finally beginning to upregulate. Your brain is physically building more antennae to catch the smaller, quieter signals of real joy because the loud noise of the algorithm has been muted. This is the boredom barrier that separates the cogs from the creators. To push through this wall, we move into step 3 of the protocol, hacking the amygdala through identity anchoring. When that day 4 urge to relapse into the scroll hits, we use a technique called temptation bundling with a neuro twist. You take that high-friction task, the one that makes your CEO brain want to quit, and you pair it with a very specific low-grade sensory reward that you only get during that silo. For me, it was a specific type of dark chocolate and a very particular binaural beat playlist. Neurologically, you are bribing the amygdala. You're telling your survival system, look, I know this coding session is quiet and doesn't have flashing lights, but here is a tiny hit of organic novelty to keep the lights on. By doing this consistently, you move from a state of ego depletion into a state of cerebral sovereignty. You stop being a seeker of sparks and start being a builder of fires. You move from the dash-shaped life of shallow, empty distraction to the M-shaped career of deep, polymathic impact. Painting a picture of your life 30 days from now, if you hold the line, the empty feeling will have vanished entirely. Your dopamine system will be completely rewired. You won't just tolerate hard, dry work. You will start to crave it. You will wake up with a sense of self that isn't a curated reflection of a feed, but a high-definition internal monologue. You will become the person who can see the music in the data and the history in the code because your default mode network is finally back online. You will have the cognitive blueprint that honors your multi-passionate nature instead of punishing it, giving you the focus to finally turn those 10 business ideas into a reality that actually shifts the needle on your bank account and your life. This protocol will give you the sovereignty to outthink any AI and outcreate any specialists. However, all of this progress, every new receptor you've built and every alpha wave we've stabilized can be completely destroyed in a single night if you continue to make the 3 fatal mistakes that are silently shrinking your prefrontal cortex while you sleep. These are habits that nearly everyone in 2026 believe are healthy, but my brainwave data shows they are actually performing a slow-motion lobotomy on your focus every single evening. To find out what those 3 toxic habits are and how to eliminate them before they sabotage your new high-performance brain, you need to click on this video right here. I've G-coded the data on the nightly shutdown, and what I found will change the way you look at your bedroom forever. I'll see you over there.